Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta taj'alul hazna idha shi'ta sahla. Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husna ibadatik ya Rabbil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So folks in the masjid, thank you for waiting. For the folks online, there's no sound, Shaz. It's transmitting sound now, are you sure? You can hear it, yeah? So for everybody online, I want to apologize. There was an unscheduled talk and whatever, and they didn't know that there was an audience that was waiting. So that's with respect to what just happened now. But alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, it's good to be back in Shiro, although only for this particular week. The next 2 weeks will be online again, and then we have a clean run, inshallah, through 2025 until Ramadan. And we might need to also consider some changes there as well, maybe increasing some of the lessons, because this is one of the years in which there's going to be less lessons than we'd like. We'll probably need to do another 2 or 3 at least. So that's something as well. Now, there's before I start, there are a couple of things that I want to say. Always, you know how things are with news, always happy news and sad news and everything. I have so much happy news, but we also have some sad news as well. So I want to start with the sad news first, because one of our very close Sati kind of folks, very loyal LP students, Farah, who many of you know personally, her mother passed away earlier today. Unexpected, you know, whilst already in a difficult situation, her father's been hospitalized for the last couple of months. So it's very sad and shocking, to be honest. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive her and give her al-firdaus al-a'la, Allahumma ameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her entire family with patience. That's Farah Anwar Bawani we're talking about. I know that Farah is a common name, but actually there is only one Farah when it comes to LP. So tomorrow will be the janazah, and it will be in Khizra Masjid. And so anybody that can attend around Dhuhr, let me give you the exact time. I do believe it is Dhuhr. Unless somebody knows. 1 o'clock. Yes. So Dhuhr is at 1 p.m. at Khizra Masjid, which is in Cheetham Hill, 425 Cheetham Hill Road. And then the burial is going to be in Bury, if anyone can get to that, at Bury Cemetery itself. But yeah, so that's that. And so, of course, our condolences to Farah. In terms of good news, then alhamdulillah, we have the newlyweds, mashallah, and Maliha over there, and we get to taste some of that as well, which is how we really want to hear that news. So we'll send some of those around now, whilst the spies are here, or yani, the masjid trustees. Yeah, these are the ones, you know, but these are the ones that got wrappers. They won't say anything. So we'll start that one over that side. And who's gonna, Marina, you ready for the catch? Right, so let's spread that joy, and then there's some serious mal going around here. Some proper mal. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So you guys got plenty. I expect you lot to share with us. I mean, obviously you can take a bite or a half from your one over there, but then it needs to come back. That's afterwards, right? Whereas this one here, you know, I don't know if it's going to be enough, but it will make it enough. If I take a couple and I like do my dam durud on it, yeah, but chuf chuf, what's his name? Pir Chuf Chuf or yeah, whatever that guy. Just do 1-2s, few 1-2s, then I think we could be in business. Bismillah, mashallah. Because we're a rock. I'm a rock, by the way. Is that Salim? Are you hungry? Did you say you want it now? Oh, no, I told you that I wasn't going to think. Bilal, yeah, chuck me one of those before thingy. That's the one. So, that's good news. And also good news is that Yahya Ibrahim is in town this weekend. Yeah, and Mr. Smooth, mashallah, tabarakallah, just how smooth this as this chocolate is, bismillah. And so that's Al-Maghrib under siege, yeah? Yeah. Nice Usuluddin class, right? So that's going to be in Salford. almaghrib.org/Manchester/siege. Or almaghrib.org, you'll find it. So, and London the week after? Oh, the day after, sugars, 1 day. Sorry guys, it's not a full weekend. It's a 1 day class. So all you Pakistani complaining about how long everything's got, 1 day I think should be enough for you, yeah? All right. So that's Saturday in Manchester and Sunday in London, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And it'd be madness to not speak about what a week has been in Sham and how happy the hearts are. However long it lasts, we're going to enjoy it. There'll be misery to come, there's no doubt about it. The kuffar are trying their very, very best to rain on our parade, but we take the easy wins, we take the hard wins, we take the small wins. We will take this win. And this is a masjid which knows about it very well. Islam's father, alayhi rahmatullah, and Sheikh Salim, two of the stalwarts of that whole campaign, for awareness of that and every effort. Sheikh Salim, one of the founders of Syria Relief, which is obviously one of this country's the biggest charity in terms of Syria, right? And that's synonymous with this masjid and this community. And of course, we have a huge Syrian community, relatively speaking, in terms of their diaspora, Syrian and Shami community. And we only pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to bestow His mercy and open up the rest of Sham. Allahumma ameen. But it's a highly emotional time right now. Anyway, alhamdulillah. All right, where are we in terms of texts? Okay, I know where we are. We will read the following. How many of you put your hands up have been following the last 6 weeks? I know Umar has. I know you have, to be honest. I know you Pakis haven't. And Yusuf, I'm going to test you on this, yeah? And you put your hand up like that, and then you... Okay, khalas. All right, Yusuf's in. Anam, I seen. Hiba, you fish, you dream, yeah? Emma, kind of don't know whether it's you or Walayat, both using each other's accounts. No, I don't know about that. Yeah, so I don't know. But for the folks online, they know exactly where we are. All right? You lot like, it's good to be in Dars again 6 weeks later. Let's see what we're talking about this week. Astaghfirullah. All right, that's okay. It's all right. So we are in the yes, subchapter والجمعة ركعتان يسن أن يقرأ جهرا في الأولى بالجمعة وفي الثانية بالمنافقين وتحرم إقامتها في أكثر من موضع من البلد إلا لحاجة فإن فعلوا فالصحيحة ما باشرها الإمام أو أذن فيها فإن استوتا في إذن أو عدمه فالثانية باطلة وإن وقعتا معا أو جهلت الأولى بطلتا. That's the end of one section, but we are definitely going to start the next one. وأقل السنة بعد الجمعة ركعتان وأكثرها ست ويسن أن يغتسل وتقدم. We're not getting past that, so we'll leave it there. So what we're going to complete today is a right bottle of fun, right? Yani, yeah. It is permissible to establish the Friday prayer. It is impermissible, sorry. It is impermissible to establish the Friday prayer in more than one place in the locality unless there is a need. If that did happen though, it will be invalid as long as the Imam himself attended or he permitted for it to go ahead. If two Friday prayers were equally both permitted to go ahead or both prohibited, the second of them would be invalid. If they both occurred at exactly the same moment, or one can't work out which was first, they are both invalid. That's the end of that section, which we're going to complete today. Then we hope to start the minimum sunnah units after the Friday prayer are 2, with 6 the maximum. It is the sunnah to take a bath, as explained previously. We're not going to get past that. We're not going to get into ghusl today, but that's the completion of these parts. Right, so what are we speaking about? Obviously, the last 2 weeks we've been talking about this. To give you a quick summary, what we're saying is that, as we've been explaining in the last couple of months, Jum'ah is a community event, and it cannot, and its obligatory nature and the emphasis upon it is to make sure that everybody attends, right? Everybody attends, and they check up on each other, and they see what's what, and they find out what's going on. But also, for those that might be missing out for some kind of reason, work, X, Y, Z, blah, 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 they also get a reminder. And that's where the khutbah comes in, so that they stay in touch. And there's very much a Quranic kind of vibe going on. So the prayer is more emphasized than the khutbah itself. The khutbah is meant to be short and sharp and to the point. And we see from the Prophet ﷺ that he would use the Quran in the khutbah heavily as well. And we spoke about all of the kind of manners and ways that the khatib uses in order to keep the khutbah fresh and focused and makes the people motivated. And we also learned the adab of the people that are there and what they should know and treat the imam with the respect that he does. It is clearly against the concept of Jum'ah to have multiple ones. If this is the point of unity and a show of strength and the big reminder, and where the big man comes out and does the big kind of address, people are already seeing it as important when it's the imam. And whenever we use the word imam in the chapter of Jum'ah, we don't mean the imam, we mean the leader of the Muslims. Yeah? Whenever you read in the books of fiqh the word imam, it always means a leader of the Muslims. It means Amir al-Mu'mineen, it means the governor of the state, it means the mayor if there are multiple ones, etc., etc. It never means the masjid imam. And every time that we spoke about with his permission, not permission, we're talking about literally authority, legal authority. And so the idea there is to try to, listen, we kind of get a taste of that when we try to do Eid as a community. And then you get to see, like if you want to try to, masjid organizers understand this very well, and community organizers understand this very well, or this chapter of fiqh, and the masses probably don't connect to it, because you're not seeing behind the scenes and you're not understanding the politics of it. But you'll see that every Eid since day dot, we've always tried to do a community gathering. The politics comes in when you've got different sects. The Dios don't want to do it, the Brevis don't want to do it, Al Hadith, blah, blah, blah. That's always going to happen. That's fine. But then you've got the financial politics, because each masjid makes a lot of money that day. And it collects, obviously, for itself and its projects, let alone its chosen charities. Now it's got even more complicated, because now the masajid are receiving funds from charities to be a trusted charity partner. And so they're expecting a specific return. The situation is horrible actually now, right? Very problematic, fiqh and ethics-wise. So it's got even worse. But just keep it at a simple level, even if you don't have a charity partner, even if you're just a random masjid. Obviously a masjid like Cheadle, people are desperate to be its partner because it's an affluent area. And you do have obviously maybe 5 or 10 of these chosen masajid in the UK which are targeted like that. But think about the other 2,500 which don't have charity partners. they themselves are also under the same pressure because they don't need a charity partner to put them under pressure. Just their own needs are making them under pressure. And so they want to hold it in their own area. The idea that 10 masjids come together and do it in the park or do it in, remember once we did it in Main Road, you know, where Man City used to play, the old Main Road? It's called Main Road, yeah. Main Road, there's their training facility indoor. We did a couple there where a lot of the thing, and Plattfields used to be, is this still happening, Plattfields? Yeah. Still happens. A university only. The McDo. Right. No, I'm saying Plattfields outside, I'm saying. So, and if you think about the vibe that's going through the Muslim community, they love the idea of a show of strength, a show of unity, get one kind of celebrity type imam who's going to do a really good job and, you know, keep the people pleased, unlike other celebrity imams who don't have a reputation for that. And, you know, it makes a lot of sense. It's a good opportunity and everyone buys into it. Everyone can see, well, guess what? That's actually what's meant to happen for Jum'ah. That's exactly the same vibe for Jum'ah. But why don't we have that vibe? Because we have so many. Because the himma, the ihtimam of the Muslims for Jum'ah is now so low that if we've got 5-6 people in my work office, we'll establish it down the road. You know, we'll establish it in the office, at the end. We'll do it in the hospital. We'll do it in schools and whatever. And we spoke about this, right, a couple of weeks ago, that we've got this dichotomy between, on the one hand, how do we get back to the sunnah of cutting all these out, or even going harder and saying they're all invalid, right? They're invalid either because of numbers. So if, from a Hanbali point of view, they turn around and say these are all less than 40 people, they're all invalid anyway, right? It's not a Jum'ah, hasn't fulfilled the minimum conditions. But then you could use other kind of arguments that what kind of Jum'ah is something which is restricted to a company building or a school in which nobody else is allowed in. And this goes against the concept of Jum'ah. We spoke about what happened in COVID, how people were doing it at home and leaving their gates open to, in some cases actually invite people in, and others just to pretend, think you can come in, but you're not actually allowed in. The idea that public access is there. So there is very much a problem behind the legal status of the Jum'ahs that we have in the West. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And if you go to the Muslim countries, in any of the Muslim countries, the place where you pray every day will not be open for Jum'ah. Not all of them. Yeah? You will see that they will close a small thing. And the Masjid al-Jami' is meant to be that one, the one that gathers everybody, right? And you'll see even amongst the people in their colloquial kind of understanding, will go to the Jami'. We'll go to the big masjid. There's an understanding that it's meant to be minimize the small kind of ones. And that's obviously how you divide people, and that's how people get weak. Now, the counter argument for people like us is obvious, right? This isn't a Muslim country. None of this chapter applies. There is no Muslim authority, let alone, forget the Muslim country. There's no Muslim authority that anyone could agree on. We wouldn't be able to agree on a Muslim authority in a masjid, let alone in, an area of masajid. Who's the one that's going to be making these calls that you get to come and you don't get to come? You get to have your Jum'ah, you don't get to have a Jum'ah. And then the very real issue, and me as being obviously a fiqh teacher and very strict about the law, I completely get it. And as much as I hate it, as much as I am more than happy to say that the Muslims in a school should not be praying Jum'ah because it's not valid, it's not correct from hardly any angle, from a fiqh point of view, they should pray Dhuhr. The fact that we allow the risk of them getting zero Islamic input, even on a weekly basis, is just too dangerous, especially now. And I would have said the same statement 10 years ago, especially now. And now you look at the situation 10 years later with all of the baqwas that happens now, it's even more dangerous and it's even more of an imperative to allow it to happen. And so the fatwa will be there, and we hope that these prayers are valid, and we will support them, and we will make sure that our kids go to them, etc. But you need to understand why the fiqh is the fiqh. Yeah? Why the rules are the rules. But we've got to also be practical and say that works when you're in a Muslim country and they close down all the schools for that day. But when you're in a non-Muslim country and they're not opening up anything, they're not closing anything, and you're having to go and you have to attend, then we have to also be flexible with it. And that's why I want you to be very clear that class position or my position or whatever you want to call it is that all of these Jummah prayers are valid, even if undesirable, and that they should be supported, and people should work in ways to support them, even though legally, according to all 4 schools, they are invalid prayers. Yani technically old money, old fiqh, right? They are invalid from, like, I'd be amazed to find any of the 4 madhabs that be able to support this kind of Jummah, which again also goes to show to you, and I mean, obviously you guys understand this, but it's so important for those Muslims who don't understand this, that the futility of thinking that Islam is served by one madhab, right? That I am Shafi'i or I'm Hanbali, or no. We live in a whole different world, a different era. It's all about understanding context, the fiqh of minorities, the importance of understanding novel, Novel, fatwa, for an era which requires it and cannot depend upon, as I said, old money. Hamza.
When you said that that's the class position, are you specifically saying carving out spaces with the school college one? You're not talking about the office one?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if I'm going to be accurate, then this should be for the schools where there are post-pubescent kids that cannot and do not have the ability to be able to leave. The workplace is something different. The workplace, people do have that choice. And if we give in to that, like if I was to now go and say, all of those Jummahs are valid, you should go and attend that one, we are the last man standing on that. The conservative traditionalists are the last man standing in trying to protect the importance of the sacred. Like an adult cannot be treated like a child. And an adult, whatever the financial pressure, has the right, even from some legal way, through working conditions and blah blah, or human rights law, to be able to kick up a fuss of some sort, at the very least, in most professions. And ultimately, there's a laziness thing going on. And I'm not blind to the counter arguments that we put forward, and they'll be like, yeah, that's okay for the practicing lot, but what about the non-practicing lot, where if you don't put the Jummah in, then they're not going to, there's not even going to be a Jummah. If we don't do a Jummah there in the empty office next door, they're definitely not going to go to the masjid. In fact, they're not even going to pray. We cannot be dictated to by some buffoons who are not practicing deen, right? That's the same as the people in the clubs. We should all go into the clubs and give them that, all of the stupid kind of rabbit holes that you could go down if we start justifying things like that.
Yeah, because surely it's worse for them to have them have this sukoon that, oh, we have done something there in their pretend Jummah and feeling okay, whereas if they have to abandon it altogether because it's gone, then eventually you think the guilt might get to them, might be proper.
What you just said there, and I'm going to repeat that for the sake of the people online. What Hamza said is a really subtle and excellent point. If you look at this argument emotionally, and it's an emotional argument, that people at work, they're not going to pray anyway, and if you don't do that Jummah, then they're just going to sit and enjoy lunch with Sally and that's it, right? Look, the truth is that emotional little bit of satisfaction of praying this Jummah prayer, which is not really a proper Jummah prayer, and which doesn't actually have any really meaningful kind of achievement, might be equally balanced, if we're now into the emotional arguments game, by the idea that after missing another one and being told you've missed another one, and how serious that is, and the fact that you're not hearing anything, might have a bigger and more devastating impact upon a person to actually make the move and go to the masjid, versus just keeping themselves happy with this part-baked, pseudo-legal presentation every Friday. And by the way, I'm not saying that it's legally invalid. We've already seen that some scholars said that a gathering of 3 people and they're not musafir and whatnot. So technically the argument will be able to be made. But again, this is not how we are going to develop people. This is not how we protect the community. And this is not how we teach the sunnah. Anna.
How do you counter something if you allow
Allow what, sorry?
Like if you allow children to pray in school,
Yeah.
how would you counsel someone that might say, well then that's bid'ah, why are you allowing them?
So the question is that if we allow children to pray the Jum'ah in schools, how can we do that? Isn't this basically saying, isn't this effectively allowing a bid'ah to occur? Not necessarily, because again, there's enough, how can I say, legal grounds to put a semi-argument forward for the validity of the prayer, right? Let alone a fatwa giving it 100% validity and desirability and, all coming out, gleaming as a position. Put that to the side, because that's fatwa. That doesn't necessarily use, primary evidences. There's enough there to suggest that once we've gone past the minimum and they are above the age of prayer and they do gather together and there's someone who does the reminder and they put it together in some kind of, some kind of way, even though they're laughing all the way through and they're all giggling all the way through, we remember it ourselves and we know how it happens now. But it's something, and there's legally something there. It doesn't fall into the category of bid'ah. It absolutely doesn't fall into the category of bid'ah. Yeah. So that's that. All right. So all of this chapter is predicated on that. So when you see all these complex kind of statements and sentences, which honestly are so overwhelming, they sound so nonsensical. Just look at the translation, right? It says, so it's impermissible to establish Friday prayer in more than one place. Everyone's happy with that statement, makes sense, whatever, in the locality unless there's a need. And last week, for those folks who missed the lesson, the best thing about last week was a statement that was found that there was no multiple Jum'ahs established in the history of our ummah until the end of the second kind of, meaning the third generation of the Salaf. And it was narrated in the time of Imam Ahmad. Imagine we're going 100, 200 years sticking to this principle, because this was what the Prophet ﷺ established. By the way, those thinking, how is this established? It's basically because the Prophet ﷺ made all the people come in from Awali and Quba and the other parts come into the Jum'ah and not stay basically where they were. You got what I'm saying? So that continued and it never differed. Obviously, Mecca is a different city. It has its thing. We're talking about one locality, one area. It was very preserved, that concept. And the first recorded multiple Jum'ah occurs in Baghdad. And it occurs because of the Tigris River becoming more difficult to cross from east to west for them to go to the Jum'ah on the other side of the river. And when I was reading into it, the historian said that the fatwa was given, and I don't think it was given by Imam Ahmad, but it was of scholars at that time or just after, whatever, after multiple people died in the rush trying to cross those bridges to get to the Jum'ah. And that's when they relented and said, you know what, we're going to give the East its own Jum'ah. Can you imagine how protective they were of this concept? That they're keeping two regions separate, which is serious distance, big headache going across, whereas we're like, man, yeah, I can make this brie. I can make Heaton. Let me do Khanka today. Who's doing khutbah today? Ali Koka, right? Let's go to Chido then. He's not left. He goes to me, I haven't done khutbah for two months. I go, that's perfect, because I haven't been here for 2 months. Now I want you to come and do the khutbah every Friday for the next 2 months when I'm here, right? I don't get stuck behind some packy app there. You just anyway, we've Sayyid spies sitting there. We can't cuss and cheer too much. But Ali Koka Zindabad, 7 minutes, bang on the dot, no messing about, lovely. Anyway, so the point is that now we are sport for choice. It is actually a joke situation. Yet at the same time, it's not. This masjid can't handle 2 khutbahs, right? 2 thingy. That's another thing which is completely prohibited in fiqh, by the way, to have multiple Jum'ahs. It's the biggest joke ever. But imagine that there was only 1 khutbah here. What would happen? You see the chaos here, and after 1? We need actually 3 to really kind of, put the stress down on everybody, people, us, everyone. You know what I mean? And so the good thing that we can say pretty much, unless you're Shahpur and Masjid and the Bengali one behind it, yeah, unless you're those two specifically, right? But if other than those, pretty much these masajid are needed and the Jum'ahs are needed. Nearly every single one is ram-packed full, right? And that's the point there. It is invalid, impermissible to establish the Friday prayer in more than one place in the locality unless there is a need, and that's the need. Once it comes too much, then we can have multiple ones. If it does happen though, and now what we're talking about is that that there was no need, and it's back down to politics and fame and people just wanting to have their own masjid and a bit of laziness. If it does happen, how do the Muslims respond? This is what you need to be reading in between the lines, because the text is very confusing. It will be, because it continues. If that did happen though, it will be valid as long as the Imam himself attended or he permitted for it to go ahead. So I want you to now divide between two things here. Valid for who? For me. And who am I? I'm the miskeen Musalli Joe Blogs that is in a situation where we just want to make sure we have a valid Jum'ah prayer. And we know that you're not meant to have more than one. So how do I determine when I see 5 in front of me that though I am going to pray in the one which is legally valid? Easy way, whatever the Imam himself, the leader, is giving khutbah in. Because by definition, the other 4 are illegal, technically speaking. So that's the first scenario, easiest scenario, where he's there, that's valid. The second scenario is when he himself recognizes, astaghfirullah, he himself goes rogue, the Imam, and starts allowing other Jum'ahs to go ahead. So this is again the brackets that you're not hearing or reading into it, that this is not valid what the Imam is doing, right? So we're saying that the rule is that it's got to be one, but the Imam, for again political reasons or whatever reasons, he says you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, but you know that he's not allowed to do that. Now when you know he's not allowed to do that, you've got to still work out which one you can attend, okay? And if there's multiple others that start doing it as well, and the Imam can only attend one of them, then we're going to say that the valid prayer, according to you, Miskeen Joe Blogs, who doesn't have this obligation upon his head to really kill himself over it, is the one that the Imam prays in, or the one that the leader, the Imam, tells you, I allow you to pray in this one, and I allow you to pray in that one, and out of 10, for example, he chooses 3, so the prayer is going to be okay in those. Remember, all of these Jum'ahs are without an actual need. That's the key here, without an actual need. Then it continues. If the 2 Friday prayers were equally both permitted to go ahead or both prohibited, the second of them would be invalid. Meaning that you're going to have to give credence to the one that was first. First either in permission or first either in, and now we start going back a year back when we started speaking about which of the masjid should you pray in. And if you remember, it was the one that was built first, the one that's per sunnah first, blah, blah, blah. And so that's the same thing now kicking in again, that we need to now prioritize the masjid that was given permission first, or the one that has the greater authority, or the one that was built first, the one that established Jum'ah 10 years before this second masjid started it. So now 2 masjids are operating in an area now. One has only been doing it for a year, the other one's been doing it for 11 years, and then they both now do Jum'ah at this time here. The first one is the one that gets the priority. But sometimes you can't tell. And if you can't tell, if they are equally permitted or equally prohibited, the second is going to be automatically invalid. If they both occur at exactly the same moment, or one can't work out which was first, they are both invalid, and you pray Dhuhr. I want you to think about this practically. How the fish is anybody going to work this out? Joe Blogs. He's in an area, and there's 15 Jum'ahs which are going on, and he doesn't know which one, which masjid, which this, which that, which is why I want to say, and I can't remember saying this very many times, but this is a ridiculous chapter of fiqh. It is a ridiculous sub-chapter of fiqh, and I remember the statement of Sheikh Sa'di and Sa'di, both names are narrated. This is the teacher of Sheikh Uthaymeen, alayhi rahmatullah. And he said that this whole discussion has got to be caveated with the fact that there's not a single bit of evidence from the Quran and Sunnah to be saying this prayer is invalid and this person's Jum'ah is invalid and blah, 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 blah. And that the prayer of the Muslim that enters into any one of these masjids in order to offer Jum'ah, knowing or not knowing which was first, not first, XYZ, blah, 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 is valid and correct, and he will never come under sin for it. And I think this is a fantastic statement. And I think not only is it a fantastic statement, it is a rare statement in our modern times of a brave scholar that's willing to just take it upon his head and say, listen, I know that all of the madhabs go into all of this crazy detail, talking about this, talking about that, and you should see the amount of pages they spend on it. And honestly, I'm not going to spend another minute on it. All these pages that Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, this is the same as that, this is the same as this. And he himself did not actually make that statement like his teacher did. And he could have. And I have to say, I'm really surprised that he didn't, he actually just enjoyed himself in the legal wranglings of it. And I get that, because there are some interesting things. For example, especially this point of if they both occur at the same time, right? Then what actually happens? Is one invalid and one not invalid? A lot of the time in the madhabs, they took this opportunity to discuss the issue of Eid and Jum'ah falling on the same day. Now, you know, in the Hanbali school, you can pray Jum'ah before Zawal. Technically, you can pray Jum'ah in the same time of the Eid prayer, because the Eid prayer is to be prayed up to Zawal time. Yeah? And so they then start to talk about the idea that if the Eid prayer and the Jum'ah prayer are at the same time, then the second one is not needed anyway, and the first one is done. And you know that in the, because it happens quite a few times, right? Everyone's now experienced it at least 3 or 4 times that I can remember in the last 10, 15 years. And the 3 Imams, Abu Hanifa, Malik and Shafi'i, said that the Jum'ah is absolutely obligatory. Good thing is we're Hanbali, right? And we're mafti from that Jum'ah on the Friday. And we enjoy that maf as well. 100% bonus of all bonus. Well, I didn't get tortured enough by that guy and Eid that you want him to come back and flip in Jum'ah as well, get killed again? Are you kidding me, bro? Throw traffic and all that headache into it as well. Throw the bumps from hellfire, the road traffic measures, not bumps, they're like camel humps. You go over it and your whole teeth are rearranged, yeah? And you know what it is? They said, supposed to slow me down? Yeah, kill me now. You slowed me down, all right? You tell, too right, bro. You know they said that boxing and American football causes concussion. Bro, I said, bro, come to this masjid 5 times a day. And you'd have concussion after just 1 day of coming to Chido. Bro, I was with my dad the other day, I brought him. I went over it at 0.01 miles an hour. I climbed over it like I was climbing over a mountain. And I put the car over like that, the wheel went down and my dad goes, I said, Allah, Tawbah, astaghfar. I said, Tawbah, I said, I've killed the guy, I've killed him. Bro, no. I told you, or whoever, I was in the car with someone the other day, I said it's the only way to protect the people who are walking. It's true. It works though, that's the thing. It makes you come to 0 miles an hour.
Yesterday, I saw BMW 5
Zoom over it. Bro, but that car's gone, it's dead.
No, after that, and he zoomed around the rest of the car.
Bro, after I've broken my car on that's what I would do. I'd zoom around as well, just to make myself feel better. So, obviously, it's something that's... so, they took that opportunity, as I said, to make this point that the second prayer itself is not something needed, especially that there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the prayers can be combined and put together, and so on and so on. And we know that there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is that those who want to attend can attend, and those who don't want to don't need to. But he himself ﷺ gave the khutbah. And that's why the Hanbali position, which is a accurate position, is that the Joe Bloggs doesn't need to attend, but the Imam must offer both. So the Imam has to offer a khutbah for a Jum'ah and a khutbah for Eid, but the follower doesn't need to attend both of them. But anyway, that's the kind of opportunity which they get to speak about in this. So we can conclude on that class position is whatever form of the Jum'ah that you go to, it will be valid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Right, let's start the one that I think many people are waiting for. A lot of questions about this, All right? What are the sunnah prayer of Jum'ah? How does it work? What's going on? What are the hadith in play? So the text that we've got, وَأَقَلُّ السُنَّةِ بَعْدَ الْجُمْعَةِ رَكَعَتًا. What time are you going, Shaz? No.
Sorry?
What time are you going today as well? Leaving early?
No.
All right. Well, who's... what time?
9:30.
Okay. وأقل السنة بعد الجمعة ركعتان وأكثرها ست. So the minimum sunnah units after the Friday prayer are 2, with 6 the maximum. Did you see how he just jumped straight into the sunnah after? It's not even a thought. It's not even a point to speak about beforehand. And actually, it is the minority position that there is any sunnah before Jum'ah prayer. And the reason for that is because we have such a clear narrative of what used to happen on Jum'ah, right? The Jum'ah, and you know, this is available in English as well. So anyone who wants to read about this, I don't know what the translation is called, but Zad al-Ma'ad has been translated into English. It's been translated for a long time. Zad al-Ma'ad is written by Ibn al-Qayyim, right? And Ibn al-Qayyim, Zad al-Ma'ad basically describes everything that the Prophet ﷺ used to do. It's a fantastic book, actually, right? I don't know if the translation is good or not, but the Arabic original and with all of its commentaries and everything is great. So, if you look at how he describes how things used to go, if you look at and see how he explained what happens on a Friday, obviously he uses the Sunnah to kind of describe it in just like a story kind of way. But if I was to do it in my own words, the Prophet ﷺ does not come out to the masjid. You got to understand the structure as well. He is literally connected to the masjid, out of the door of his house into the door of the masjid. So he obviously is an exception to the rule. And that's a difficult point, by the way, to understand and to explain, because we actually are meant to copy him in everything. How can he be an exception to the rule when we're trying to copy exactly him? But sometimes you have to use your own aql and say, well, clearly we're not going to be following the sunnah of the khatib. We're meant to be following the sunnah of who he's telling us to be, which is followers. So when you're told you need to come early to Jum'ah, and that the one who comes earliest gets this, and the one who gets early, until you end up with just under at the end, yeah? If you're a person who comes super late, then you're not meant to be saying, well, the Prophet ﷺ came out when the unders were giving out, yeah? And so if, he's the last man out, so we'll just be happy with the eggs. You should go for the big animals. You should be there early, right? You should be there making dhikr, you should be there praying and the Tahiyatul Masjid and praying nafil and reciting Quran and. So that's an aql point. You're not going to use the Prophet ﷺ as an example, you're going to use his statement as the example. So, the people are coming in and they're coming to the masjid, and that's what leads to the confusion. Because when you're coming to the masjid, what are you going to be doing? You've not got many options, have you? Right? What are you going to do? The first thing is that pretty much all of the madhahib consider it obligatory or near obligatory to pray Tahiyatul Masjid when you enter the masjid. So everybody's going to be observed praying 2 rak'ah. All of the sahaba, all of the people coming in. That's ripe ground for confusion when people are trying to work out if there's sunnah before Jum'ah. No, there's no sunnah before Jum'ah. That's the sunnah of the masjid. That's the I need to pray before you sit down. The second point, if you're now sitting there for an hour, what options do you have? Dhikr, all right? Quran, yes? And remember, we're talking zawal at the beginning. Like even the Hanafi school, which is famous for delaying prayers, yes? They pray their Jum'ah straight after the start time of Dhuhr, isn't it? So if we can understand then that pretty much anyone that's coming even half an hour or an hour or an hour and a half before Jum'ah, then you know that you're in a safe zone for prayers. You're before the Zawal prohibited time. Agreed? And so therefore, prayer is going to be a prime act of what to do. In fact, Shaykh Uthaymeen has a really a beautiful point that he mentioned, which is, what would a person be doing when they come on the day of Jum'ah? Should they be reciting Quran? Obviously, we got that pressure of Surah Al-Kahf that needs to be finished, but that's not necessarily the time for Surah Al-Kahf. But practically, for most people, it will be, right? And especially if they don't memorize it or haven't memorized it, and they're going to then read it from Mus'haf, then that's a key point. But he was asked the question, which is, what's better to do in this waiting period for Jum'ah? And he goes, there's no question, it's prayer, of course, because recitation of Quran is great, but prayer is recitation of Quran plus ruku' and qiyam and sujood and dua and everything else. It is dhikr and it is prayer and it's ibadah and it's movement and it's sajda and it's dua, which is the best of acts of worship, and it's the recitation of Quran. It combines everything. It is the, as he said, it's the royalty of all acts of worship. It's right at the top, right? So that cannot be confused. This is nafil prayer. Cannot be confused with saying that there are formal sunnah prayers for Jum'ah. And the reason we know there's no formal sunnah prayers is that the adhan was not given until the Prophet ﷺ comes in. So Jum'ah is not established until the Prophet ﷺ comes in. And so he came in, the hadith make it very clear, Bilal, as soon as he sees him, he waits for the Prophet ﷺ to get onto the minbar. As soon as he sits down on the minbar, and that moment Bilal gives the adhan for Jum'ah. You can say, I'm going to make an adhan before and we're going to pray. You can do what you want, but you can't call it Jum'ah. Jum'ah only starts when the mu'adhin, Bilal radiallahu anh, gives the adhan for Jum'ah. And so he does. What do we know by necessity? That the Prophet ﷺ started the khutbah. So where are people praying? And that's why you have this weird situation where in those masajid that don't create an artificial gap for you to pray, there'll be, desi lot that will come in, right? Ostensibly Hanafis, that will come in. The Imam has started khutbah, and the guy will come stand straight in the front of the gap, and he'll start praying, in front of the Imam giving khutbah. Like, and not like just a quick two, which is the best that we can say for someone who comes into the masjid, because the hadith makes it clear in this example of a person who came and the Prophet ﷺ stopped the khutbah and said, have you prayed? Right? And there's a discussion about what this hadith means, and we'll come to that. We covered it actually before in Tahiyyat al-Masjid. But he said to him, have you prayed? And in one narration, he said no. He said, okay, stand up and pray, but be wajiz, be quick. Don't, take whatever. And you see us lot do the exact opposite. He'll come in and he'll do his jarakat, mashallah, right in front, stand, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, the point is, as Ibn Qayyim said, that the Prophet ﷺ started the khutbah straight away. He goes, there's not even a question among scholars that there is time for the sunnah. Where is the time for sunnah? There isn't. Actually, that's correct. It is supported by the evidence, and all of the sunnah is after the Jum'ah prayer. That's where the debate starts. How many, where, when, who does it, at what place, what time, who's being focused on. Very complex discussion, because there's so many ahadith on the matter. The Hanbalis have set their stall out. They said the minimum to pray is 2 rak'ah and the maximum is 6. Let's follow what Shaykh Uthaymeen says. What are we saying for time, Chaz?
50 minutes.
Right. So, Shaykh says that the author, alayhi rahmatullah, is now speaking about that which follows Jum'ah, and Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anh in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, he said, كان يصلي بعد الجمعة ركعتين في بيته. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to pray 2 units in his house after Jum'ah. 2 units in his house. This was stated by Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma in the 2 most authentic narrations, that 2 most authentic books that are possible. So in Bukhari and Muslim. So as a base rate, it's done. There's at least 2, but interestingly, in his house. Now, what do we know? We know that all sunnah is meant to be prayed at home. So much a hadith about that. The masjid is not the place for sunnah prayers. The only sunnah prayer that is prayed in the masjid is the tahiyyat al-masjid, which a person prays, and that only happens if you arrive at the masjid where there's no other prayer to pray. You arrive at the masjid time, you arrive when the iqamah is going on, you arrive when the adhan is going on, you stand praying, you stand up, you remain standing and you wait, and then you once then you join the prayer, and that is your tahiyatul masjid. But if you come 15 minutes early, or you're tired and want to sit down, or you're 20 minutes early or 10 minutes early, then you better pray 2 rak'ah. You manufacture 2 rak'ah. And that manufactured 2 rak'ah is a sunnah to do. And those are 2 units, whatever. If you've got a reason to pray 2, they automatically become your tahiyatul masjid. Other than that, there is no sunnah to be prayed in the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ made that very, very clear. We have never seen him pray any sunnah. That's the first thing. The second is that he specifically said, don't turn your homes into graveyards. That is where the sunnah is to be prayed. And how many narrations do we have from the wives of the Prophet ﷺ that he would be praying the sunnah and then coming back and praying the sunnah? So that's a very well established concept. However, what's unique about the Jum'ah prayer is that we do have some kind of evidence that would suggest that this might be an exception to the rule of all 35 kind of prayers that can be prayed in the masjid in a week. This seems to be the exception. Let's start here. This is obviously not an exception. This is enforcing the fact that you pray 2 rak'ah at home. That's established in Bukhari and Muslim. Bukhari hadith 937, in Muslim 882. And its maximum, Shaykh Uthaymeen says, is 6. Because it is also narrated on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma with a chain that was authenticated by Al-Hafidh al-Iraqi alayhi rahmatullah, and he is obviously a muhaddith of elite status. We're talking in the generation of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, elite status, okay? So he considered this hadith to be authentic, or the chain to be authentic, that An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam kana yusalli ba'd al-jum'ah 6, that he would pray sallallahu alayhi wa sallam 6 units, okay? 6 units. This is a statement of Abdullah ibn Umar. So he said 2 statements now. One which is super authentic, which is that the Prophet ﷺ prayed 2 rak'ah at home. Then another hadith which is not so authentic, I'll give you references in a minute, in which he said that the Prophet ﷺ used to pray 6 after Jum'ah. Okay? Then we go to his action, Abdullah ibn Umar's action, which for us would be showing us what he means when he says that the Prophet ﷺ prayed 6. Yeah, so you look to see how did he perform this 6. And what does Shaykh Uthaymeen say? He said that, sorry, not Shaykh Uthaymeen, he's quoting a hadith which is narrated by Abu Dawood, hadith number 1130, that when Ibn Umar used to be in Mecca, when he was observed in Mecca, he would pray 2 rak'ah, okay, and then he would pray 4. Okay, so he would pray 2 rak'ah and then he would pray 4. So there's 6 that are being prayed right there and then. وَفِي الْمَدِينَةِ, when he was in Medina, he would pray 2 rak'ah in his house. And he would say, إِنَّ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ كَانَ يَفْعَلُهُ. This is how the Prophet ﷺ used to do it. So he used to vary between these 2 approaches. He did 6 in Mecca, there and then in the masjid, and then he would do 2 in Medina at home, so showing that this is the variation that should be done. Then what about the position of 4? If we've got 2 as a minimum and 6 as a maximum, is there space for 4? Well, obviously if you're saying that 6 is maximum, you do. أما الأربعة, then the Prophet ﷺ apparently instructed to that. And he said, إِذَا صَلَّ أَحَدُكُمُ الْجُمْعَةِ فَلْيُصَلِّ بَعْدَهَا أَرْبَعَةً. So when any one of you prays the Jum'ah prayer, then let him pray 4 units after it. This is a hadith which the Hanafi school is highly dependent upon for its recommendation for 4 rak'ah after the Jum'ah prayer. This hadith, however, is narrated by this is the authentic hadith, narrated by Imam Muslim in the book of Jum'ah, hadith number 881, hadith of Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates this hadith. Now, this is also one of the side evidences for why the Hanafis pray 4 rak'ah like a 4. Now, there are other scholars that said that this 4 means 2 in the masjid and 2 at home, which is a very common practice in the other schools, right? Whereas the Hanafis, they said, well, we already have a 4 rak'ah kind of structured concept anyway. You know the 4 rak'ah prayer, you know the continuous one that makes it look like dhuhr. This is only really in 2 madhabs, the Hanbali madhab and the Hanafi madhab, and we covered it like 5-6 years ago, I think. So Shaykh Uthaymeen, he summarizes this point. He goes, فَصَارَتْ السُنَّةِ بَعْدَ الْجُمْعَةِ. Therefore the sunnah after Jum'ah can be categorized as either 2 units, either 4, either 6. وَلَكِنْ are these numbers, 2, 4, and 6, narrated in order to give you a choice, or are they to be practiced sometime this time, some Friday 4, some Friday 6, like you're meant to mix between them? You hear what I'm saying? Yeah? Is this, I need to, which kind of, how is our approach? Now we know that they've all got evidences for it. What are we going for? Yeah? So Shaykh then says the following. Should I get into this, Shaz? How many minutes are we on right now? 58. No, I'm not going to get into it, because there's some nuance to these positions. So we will carry this on next week. Next week is, of course, online. Let's do some questions here and then online as well. We'll take one and like this. Hamza, go ahead. Yeah.
What was the difference between Makkah and Medina? Was he a traveller when he was in Makkah?
So this, yeah, so the question is that when we state Makkah, what is he trying to show by doing more there? Is he a traveller or not? The clear, from knowing what we know about Abdullah ibn Umar, it is clear that he did not consider himself a traveller. That's the first thing. The second thing, which is why he's going full with the sunnah. And we know he was very strict on the issue of not praying sunnah when he travelled. So he's clearly now feeling settled. And that makes sense. No one goes to Mecca for 1 day or 2 days, especially at that time. Yeah? So he's probably now staying there for a long time, feels comfortable, whatever. But what's very interesting for me is that the other thing which is being displayed by him praying in the masjid is that he didn't feel that, even though he's not a traveller, he also didn't feel like he had a house. You know what I'm saying? Whereas in Medina, of course, he's the Imam of Medina. That's where he grew up, that's where he remains, that's where he teaches all his students. That's where he returns and becomes the scholar of Medina. He clearly feels like he has his home, and he goes back and he prays like he's praying at home, and he does pray the 2 rak'ah at home. So it's an interesting one. It's a good question. On one hand, he's showing that I'm very comfortable and I'm not a musafir, but he's also saying I don't have a home to pray those 2 rak'ah in, that I need to kind of keep it going or alive. We'll come back to that one. Shafiqa says, what is the position of sitting whilst in the Jum'ah khutbah? What is the position of sitting whilst in the Jum'ah khutbah? That's not enough detail, Shafiqa. You need to ask that question in more detail. Yeah.
The other thing was, so if we're bringing here with the time really short,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to make it, especially like you're doing your second Jum'ah here for some reason.
Yes.
And you're not going to make it for the Sunnah home for us.
Yes. So that's also a very good question, because we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he would never leave his regular sunnah prayer. And if something would happen, then he would make it up. And the evidence that we use is him doing that for missing dhuhr sunnah prayers, which, because a delegation came and they needed to be looked after, the diplomats basically needed a high-level intervention from the Prophet ﷺ, couldn't get away from them, missed doing his sunnah. Asr started, he prayed the Asr, and then he prayed the sunnah after. This is a problem from many levels. Problem is that, number one, you're not meant to pray after Asr. Problem is, number two, that sunnah by definition is something which is gone. It's not obligation that you got to make it up. And yet, both of these principles have been broken. He's made up a sunnah, and he's prayed after Asr. Led to a whole big debate amongst the scholars, massive debate. What does it mean? How was it? And some scholars said this is only for the Prophet ﷺ. It's not for the people at all because of that. And others said, no, this actually goes to show, and it works conveniently for their own kind of fiqh positions, that prayer after Asr is not all prayers not allowed. If there's a reason for the prayer, it can be prayed. If there's a justification for the prayer, or if there's a reason that cannot be delayed, then it's allowed to pray, which we hold that position as well, so that makes sense. The second way of explaining what the Prophet ﷺ did with the sunnah is what the majority of scholars say, which is that if a person only prays here and there the sunnah, then he doesn't have the right or the honor of making it up. But if someone has never missing a particular sunnah, like never, like the Prophet ﷺ, and then something happens, then they should continue to kind of make it up. That's the right and befitting thing to do. Therefore, knowing that, the answer to your question is that if there is a person that throughout the year is always praying the sunnah after Jum'ah, but obviously here you can't because, Asr starts immediately, and some of the times we're actually in Asr time when we're doing the second Jum'ah, then he has a choice of making that up after Asr, once he's prayed the Asr prayer, or if it's me, I'm telling you what I'm doing, I'm not praying it at all. And I'm not praying it at all, and I also want to be paid for it as well. And I expect to be paid for it because this was not my fault. And that's the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that whoever prays in Hadar, and then they don't do it in Safar, they get the reward for it. Yes? And the one who prays when he is sahihan, shahihan, then he gets it when he is maridan, da'ifan. Yeah? If you pray your prayers when you're able to, then when you're not able to, you get the reward. How is this any different? The crazy times, Asr, *1, what the hell is all that about? You know what I mean? I can't even breathe. Jum'ah, I can't even move. And you're telling me I've got to pray sunnah and this. Come on, bro. So yeah, I think that's that. Do we pray Dhuhr after Eid prayers? Suraya wants everything off that day. Yeah? Yes, Suraya Baji. Sorry to burst your bubble, but you need to pray Dhuhr after Eid. Yeah? Oh, Baji. Shmaila, yes.
You mentioned today and a few weeks ago as well about the time the Prophet he told people to come into Medina to read the Quran.
Yeah.
Not to establish it outside.
Yeah.
I might be mixing it up, but obviously when we're traveling, we're told not to go out of the way to.
Correct. This is not referring to travelers, of course. This is referring to the residents of the localities and neighborhoods that are together, not referring to travelers.
So it wouldn't be as far out as obviously anybody who would then be classified as travelers.
Correct. It wouldn't be a person who is on a journey, for example. Yeah, and what do we say when a person's on a journey when they're outside of the city confines? Yeah, the built-up areas, and we spoke a lot about those details about how the houses start to thin out, and then you're out. And in our modern time, we call that the ring road, or we call that the airport, because there's always going to be houses everywhere. We don't need to keep going and still thinking this is cheated, even if we've got houses and we keep going. Like imagine if you're going down Kingsway, you end up doing 5, 7, 8, 10 miles, and you'll get all the way to Manchester, and your houses are all the way down Kingsway, right? Technically speaking, there's no break in the houses. But bro, we left Cheadle miles back, right? So when it comes to the understanding of when you leave the town and the city, it doesn't necessarily in modern times have to be restricted to houses, and the airport would be that, and the ring road would be that, and so once you're on that other side and you are there, you are not required to come in. You are not required to come in. When we say there's legally something there, what is that besides the need to ensure that there are reminders? Yeah, I think I answered that one, yeah. Yeah, go on.
Nowadays, does Quba Masjid still close as well on Jummah?
It doesn't. Quba doesn't. See this guy? Look at this guy. I can't even keep a straight face, man. This guy's looking for any Jummah anyway. I just want to say that. All right? Okay. I'll tell you something. I got into I can't remember which, maybe March. Could have been March. It could have been March. It definitely wasn't Hajj. But the taxi drivers, when they come to the Haram, they're all dropping off, aren't they? Everyone's dropping off. And I went up to the taxi, and the guy who had a heart attack, he goes, was it me and you?
Yeah.
What was that? Must have been Hajj then.
Yeah, no, I don't know. We went to
Rajahi.
Yeah.
So, bro, Praying in the haram is an absolute nightmare. Like, it's the worst experience of Jummah ever. And me, I'm just looking for any excuse to get out. So if I got Shazad Salim, Shazad Salim is that brave guy. He's the mujtahid of our era. All right? He's the mujahid and the mujtahid of our era. And when he says, let's go and pray Jum'ah at Rajahi Masjid, and we'll go and we'll see so-and-so, we'll visit so-and-so, we'll pray in peace, and we'll do this, and we'll eat that, and we'll go and have Qara'i around the corner, and blah, blah, blah. I said, bro, you had me at Rajahi. Right? You had me at anything but the haram. So we get into this car, and the guy can't even believe that we're going in the opposite direction. That everyone and you know, are coming to... He was just wanting to understand the concept, this, that, whatever. I said, you know, you're a good man. You deserve your full explanation. Whatever. Anyway, so the point is, why am I making that point?
Quba.
About Quba, yes. So I have prayed a couple at Quba, yeah. I prayed a couple of Jum'ahs at Quba. Obviously, that is a legally sanctioned. So you got to understand a couple of things here. I'm a traveler. Me even attending the Jum'ah is like a charity upon the whole world. Shazad Salimian, he strives for the status of traveler so he can avoid every Jum'ah possible. Then he found out that actually you're not exempt from Jum'ah if you're amongst the Muslims. So I'm like, well, if I have to attend, there's no way that you're making me attend the one that I absolutely can't stand attending, but I'm just going to legally attend a Jum'ah and fulfill the obligation.
But you said in the Prophet's time,
Wasallam.
people used to travel from Quba to...
They did.
And you now have at that time, obviously, people...
I can tell you now that it's so easy to justify now, because you're going to burn my backside outside, right? And like, literally. I'm trying to think. Bilal did we pray Jummah outside?
No, in Medina, we arrived in Medina.
And we arrived late. In Medina, we got burned, like burn. On the ground, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I put something down as well, and I burnt my head, and it was all flipping burnt. Whatever, whatnot. Are you kidding me? Like today, nowadays, you've got the excuse to pray everywhere other than Masjid Nabawi or the Haram.
And it is literally that point that if you make sajda on the pavement, you will burn your skin.
Shazad Salim has a list of these excuses, by the way. It's all ready. He's got the full list, bro. Listen, don't be hating. No, I think, let alone the Imam has given permission, our Imam MBS, yeah? He said, you know, go ahead and spread and, you know. Astaghfirullah. You lot want me to ban forever, isn't it? Haji?
Story about.
Yes. Always like a good story.
So you said that the khutbah has to be short and sweet, but then we also know that Prophet used to recite the whole Surah Kahf, and the Sahaba used to memorize it doing that. So how do those two marry up? Because Surah Kahf would take about half.
So we covered that actually. The question is that how is the khutbah short and sweet if the Prophet ﷺ read Surah Qaf? Qaf, by the way, is 10 minutes. Recitation of Qaf is 10 minutes. Maximum. Much shorter, in fact. Yeah? Not Kahf, Qaf. Yeah? So, that's that. Secondly, like Shaykh Uthaymeen said, this is not a hard, fast rule. The hadith says that it is from the fiqh of a person who shortens his khutbah and elongates the prayer. But he said straight after that this does not mean that a person who gives a long khutbah has suddenly lost all his fiqh. There will be times where the situation needs it, the topic needs it, the people need it. But in principle, that's the system. The system should be like that. Yeah. Yep, Emma? The time for Tahiyatul Masjid? Yeah, timing.
So when the days are short, even if we aim to get to Jummah early, regularly we don't, and we get there just before the adhan, so in the time of
Prohibition. Yep.
So when should we pray?
Yeah, you should pray because our position is that any prayer that has a defined time limited reason, let alone those prayers that have an argument to be obligatory. A few scholars considered Tahiyatul Masjid obligatory. Yeah, that specifies the general prohibition. And if you want to read up about this, we cover this in a huge amount of detail in LP. But a good number of years ago, put it on the forum, and someone will show you the location of it. We covered this question about what takes precedence, the prohibition of not praying versus the specific instruction to pray, and what is given priority, and the contradictions of when it's not given priority. It's actually a very detailed area. The prayer will always trump the adhan, there's no doubt. But well, it's not that the prayer trumps the adhan, it's time trumps the adhan. It's not the prayer, because you can wait. Yeah, you could wait. It's time limited prayer.
What I mean by that is if you wait for the adhan standing, then you're missing part of the khutbah.
If the khutbah was to start straight away. In these masajid like this one here, you got plenty of time. The khutbah that will be given will be the khutbah for the start of a thingy. That reminds me, the Isha prayer times. Something very wrong with that, man. 1 hour, 20 minutes right now. I saw it yesterday. My dad goes to me, can I pray now? I had a look. I looked at the thingy, 1 hour, 20. I go, I don't think it's been changed from summer. Yeah, check that, yeah. The adhan that happens here for Jum'ah is the start effectively for the Dhuhr. So it does depend upon the masjid. So in this one, you would stand and you would wait and you would listen to the adhan and respond to the mu'adhin, and then you'd pray your 2 rak'ahs and whatever, because it's not actually the adhan of Jum'ah. It's like the adhan of Uthman, which is meant to be calling the people in. And it has. It's called the people in, kind of. How can you not bank on the 100,000 times reward of praying in Haram, right? This is specifically me going away to Masjid al-Rajahi. That's the easiest question in the world to answer. I answer this every time when I take a group to the Haram, whether for Hajj or for Umrah or whatever. And I'm going to say it to you folks because, you folks are the ones who probably narrate from me the most, and this is probably one of the more important things that you will hear me say. There's no Muslim here in this gathering, and there is no Muslim that will be listening to this, and there's no Muslim that in general from our middle class Western privileged lifestyle that is ever going to struggle with quantity when it comes to ibadah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We live in a time where historically never have a group of people been so privileged to go and pray 1,000 times, 250 in Aqsa and 100,000 in thingy. Are you kidding me? Yani you need to just pray once. It's not 100,000, it's 2.7 million. You're praying behind an imam, that's 27 times 100,000. That's 2.7 million prayers. I can spend one day at the Haram praying 5 Jama'ah prayers, and I've cleaned up with something like 13 million prayers. Yeah? 13 million. You'll spend your whole 10 lifetimes and you can't do 13 million prayers, and I got that covered in a day. Do you honestly think that this game was about quantity? You get my point? Yeah? You will not have a quantity problem. Look at the class that you belong to. You belong to a middle class where you've got human rights, blah, blah, work rights. At least once every few years, you are definitely going to get time off and do Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr, khayrun min alfi shahr. All of you are not even 27 nighters. Many of the Muslims now, they take off the 10 nights. You all know someone takes off 10 nights, don't you? And only the privileged can do that. Only the privileged can do that. That's the Western Muslim practicing class. They come and they every few years at least take off 10 nights, go to the masjid. I mean, whatever happens, they're hitting the Laylatul Qadr, isn't it? They don't need to spend the whole night praying. As so many of the Salaf said, whoever prays Maghrib Jama'ah on Laylatul Qadr takes a haddun min Laylatul Qadr, let alone Salatul Isha, let alone Salatul Fajr, which is the hadith states is the reward of praying the whole night. So all you got to do is on Laylatul Qadr, make sure you pray Fajr prayer, you've smashed it. Everything else is a bonus, by the way. All the du'as and the qiyams and the X's and the Y's that you pray, it's all bonus, and why not? But just focus on that Fajr prayer, you got the whole night. If you're taking the whole 10 nights off, I'm telling you that the Western diaspora of Muslims is getting 1,000 nights of worship every couple of years at least. Think about that. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. We're not taking risks of pretending focusing on 23rd or 25th, 27th. I'm saying guaranteed because you're doing every single one of the last 10 nights. Agreed? So quantity is not going to be your problem. It's whether it's going to be accepted or not. It's going to be the quality of those actions. It's going to be mindfulness. It's whether you're living it. It's whether you're feeling it. This is the most important thing that you're going to realize when it comes to your ibadah, folks. Yeah? And subhanAllah, the irony of this question about why would you go and when there's 100,000, I'll give you 100 of my examples of this. I've got so many of these stories, right? And you'll hear me throughout talks and lessons speak about me going from one thing which people can't imagine to something else. The easiest decision in the world, because quality will always trump quantity. And Shaykh Uthaymeen, subhanAllah, here, and I don't want to spoil it, but he mentions it, and we're going to cover it next week. He says that he gave the example of being in a haram. Subhanallah, I mean, this question came random, I didn't set this up, but he's asked the question, he gave the example about what should a person, he says, if a person was to ask, what should I do before Jum'ah? What should I prioritize? Prayer or recitation of Quran and whatever, and I just told you prayer, right? Then he said, but by the way, I say prayer, but that's dependent upon the position and place. He goes, for example, if it's in the haram, then you wouldn't be praying. Imagine saying that to Pakis today. Yani, what? I'm come to the haram, I want to pray two, I want to pick up 100,000, I want to pick 100,000. Shaykh Uthaymeen, without even skipping a heartbeat, he said, well, you wouldn't pray. And the thing is, because when you're in the haram in busy times, and you've got all these people climbing over you, and this and that, and you've got people, whatever, he goes, how can anyone concentrate? He goes, so this obviously makes sense, you'd recite Quran. And we're like, are you kidding me? That's how I pray normally. I'm just all about just getting out, up and down. Let them climb over me, let them be in front of me, let them do whatever they want. It's all about getting them in. But the people who understand the game, it's not about getting it in. You know what I mean? I will, instead of having my prayer ruined, where I've got to keep blocking people, keep thinking about what I say, it's a nightmare. And he says, he goes that you would make the judgment call. He goes, you'd make the call depending upon where you are. He goes, if you're in a nice position at the front where nobody can come, then of course you'd pray. He goes, if you're in, everywhere else where it's all madness, he goes, you'd read Quran. He goes, and that's talking about the haram. And I couldn't agree more. Yani when you're in a haram, you want to enjoy what you're doing, not into a nightmare and a situation and a mission and a blah blah. But obviously, you've got to be careful with that as well. You've got people now that have gone the other way. False interpretation of what I'm saying, which is that, you know what? For me, they're just too posh to be with the unwashed masses. So they just pray from their hotel rooms. And I can see the imam, is this on my part of the jama'ah, I can see the lines. And obviously, all these hotels now have the big musalla areas, very nice areas, right? And they say, the iqamah plays in there, we can pray behind, whatever, whatnot. And why do we need to go down? It's about quality. That's where it goes a bit too far. Because no doubt that the quality of your prayer in the haram, where it's 55 degrees outside, and a complete madness, and it takes 1 hour to get in and 1 hour to get back, and you're there, with the musalla, P3, that can just go down, go in, pray your prayer behind my guy, and in the air-conditioned thingy of the privileged whatever, and then go back to your room immediately straight after. Bro, it's an epidemic. It's crazy. When you're in the lift going up and you go from ground floor, and the lift is like generally kind of half full, then it stops at the musalla level, and there's like about 1,000 people all trying to get in like zombies. 28 days later, bang! I was going to die. Where did that go? Right. Anyway, that's enough, folks. Yes, Omar.
You just mentioned about praying in the musalla in the clock tower hotel.
Yes.
So obviously it's not ideal, but do you think this is something permissible to do?
No, I don't think it's permissible. It is obviously supported by the kingdom. They gave fatwa allowing it. It has basis. We discussed that in a lot of detail in the concept of congregation. Their argument is that if you consider that, what is the ruling of a congregation? Is it something that you have got to be part of, or something that you can see, right? So if you can see a line of the congregation, then you're part of it. And they said that if you couldn't see it, then, for example, like in the Deobandis in the UK, they have this adhan system. they as part of funds for the masjid, they sell these units where you can be like, streets away and you can hear it. Now they are disciplined enough to not pray behind it. But then the Arabs jumped on that game and then that whole situation went belly up. So you got people who follow, that kind of situation. It can get stupid then. Now the argument is that despite the fact that they are 100 times closer being streets away, right, than the person who's in a musalla, who's looking down, and the distance being a clear 1.5 kilometers walk, but because of the nature of windows and everything, it feels like you're part of it. That's not good enough. And the majority reject it. But there is a legal argument for it being valid.
But for Jum'ah, the rows might come.
That's different. That's different. That's not coming to your room or coming to the third floor. That means you should, like for example, I have a number of times prayed my Jum'ah in a mall. But that's okay. That's the masjid. Right? I'm at the actual physical Jama'ah. All the lines are continuous. That's something different. It's different. Like everything at the end looks the same, but at the beginning is different. So you've got the shopkeeper, for example, that doesn't bother coming out. Just comes out at the last second. Do you know what I mean? Knowing that that's going to be the case. Or he starts praying there from the beginning part. That's not good. It really isn't good. Right? But is it invalid? No, it's not invalid. It's similar to what happens here in this masjid. You've got people who won't put the chair in. And they remain on the end. It will fill up. Now the front row probably will. But when you're in the second row, you can't do that kind of behavior. You know what I'm saying? That's playing around. But anyway, same kind of principle. And Allah knows best. Anyone else? Are we done? All right. Barakallahu feekum. Don't forget this weekend for Manchester and for London. Jazakumullah khair. Online next week, folks. Okay, online. And then after that, 2 weeks online. Then we're back here until Ramadan, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك اللهم وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.